Good morning, a little bit early today, but I thought I'd just quickly jump on and discuss something that I was discussing with one of my clients this week, which is the idea of intermittent fasting. Now, a lot of trainers out there will be really kind of reluctant in recommending intermittent fasting. Now, for those of you that don't actually understand what intermittent fasting is, essentially what it is it's taking periods of your day and not actually consuming any calories in those moments. So say for example, like for me, I've been intermittent fasting for now nearly 3 years, where I have majority of the time, I maybe had a couple of months off where I wasn't doing intermittent fasting in the last 3 years, but I'm pretty much consistently doing. So for me, what we need to understand about intermittent fasting is it's more of a lifestyle choice than a diet. So you don't necessarily with this diet have to change what it is that you're actually eating. So with intermittent fasting, you can still eat the majority of your normal foods. However, you just limit when or the quantities that you're going to eat. So there are pretty much two different ways of doing intermittent fasting, and I'm going to quickly just run over those now. You've got window eating. So say, for example, in a 24-hour period, you may say you only eat for an 8-hour window. So e.g. between midday and 8 o'clock in the evening. Anything outside of those hours would be considered a fasting period. Equally, you've also got something called a 5-2 diet, which is essentially for 5 of your days a week, you eat your normal calories, and 2 days a week, you block it down all the way to 500 calories. So you pretty much only eat one meal 2 days a week, which gives you 2 days of normal eating, and then you have 1 day of intermittent fasting, and then you have 3 days of normal eating, and then you have 1 day of intermittent fasting. And the purpose of this is, and let me just explain why you might want to do this. So the purpose of a fasting window is a couple of reasons. The longer you go without consuming calories, the more your brain has to metabolize whatever calories it's got stored inside. Now, the majority of us that have calories stored, where do you think we keep those? Well, the reality of it is we keep those in our adipose tissue. So let me explain what that is. Adipose tissue is our fat cells. Now, if we're going to use our fat cells, once we've run out of our normal carbohydrate source, what do you think is going to start happening to people's weight? And you guessed it. What we do is we break down our fat cells into ketones to use them for energy. And the process is called ketogenesis. And you can look this up. You can look up the ketogenic diet, which is a high-fat diet. And the reason why the high-fat diet works is because you've got no carbohydrates. Your body is forced to then use ketones or fats to create energy, and that's why the ketogenic diet works. But naturally, you don't have to eat a high-fat diet in order to get ketogenesis. You can also go into ketogenesis by intermittent fasting. Now, what we have to understand is your fasting window needs to be big enough. Now, ketogenesis starts to occur in most people somewhere between 11 hours and 13 hours of fasting, which means you have to have actually not eaten for that period of time before ketogenesis is actually going to start. That's when your fat burn window is going to start occurring. And so that's essentially the process. Now, what benefit does this obviously have? Weight loss. Now, one of the other things is if you're eating an intermittent fasting diet, the likelihood is you're not actually going to be eating as much of the day. So it's almost impossible to eat the same volume of calories in 4 to 6 hours or even 8 hours in what it is in a 12-hour, 14, 16-hour period. So if you get up first thing in the morning, you eat breakfast, and you're still eating snacks late into the evening, you're naturally going to be able to eat more calories. So intermittent fasting is brilliant for weight loss. Number 2, it gives one of our major vital organs a massive break, and that's our liver and our pancreas. Our pancreas is producing insulin. This is how we actually get the carbohydrates out of our blood. Now, by actually not eating for long periods of time, it allows us to start regulating our blood glucose. And by regulating our blood glucose, we're giving that pancreas a break because it's not constantly producing the insulin. Like I say, the liver has to do a lot less work to filter out toxins. And also it can start to give people a little bit more energy But what you'll generally find when you start an intermittent fasting period, you will find that you naturally feel very, very tired because your body is not used to having to metabolize fat as an energy source. So this is my experience with intermittent fasting. If you want to learn a little bit more, there is tons and tons and tons of information, and there's now quite a lot of research going into the effects of intermittent fasting in actually treating diseases, because what they've basically looked at is how it starts to affect cells where we're constantly exposed to calories. And what we know is a low calorie diet has actually been linked with longevity. So the not necessarily the lower the calories you eat, but a lower calorie diet and a vegetarian diet or a plant-based diet has actually now started to be linked to longevity with life. In fact, actually, vegetarians are, I think, on average 7 years longer, and then a vegan is technically 10 years longer than a average meat eater or carnivore. I hope you found some value in learning a little bit of this stuff. If you want to learn a little bit more, guys, there are a couple of ways that you can reach me. Leave a comment below. You can like the post, share the post, or equally you can send me an email. You can get over to the phones, or you can jump over and leave comments on our YouTube channel, or equally you can just send us an instant message as well. Guys, I hope to hear from you soon. That's all for time. For Patrick at Complete Health Eastbourne.